no mathematician, but I can put one and one together. The Eagles ranked 31st against the pass after 2 weeks, and a year where they ranked 30th in 2018 and ranked 25th in interceptions. And Jalen Ramsey, elite cornerback, 2-time All-Pro and 24-year-old stud, is on the market after a row with head coach Doug Marrone and an off-season of trying to secure the bag and get top-tier money. The two fit together like a hand in a glove, but there are many more moving parts to this than the Eagles trading away whatever they have to acquire the services of the elite cornerback. And that's what we're going to look at in today's video, what the contract situation looks like moving forward and whether or not the Eagles can afford it, the initial cost of having to give up certain assets to get Ramsey, and of course the play on the field and how that will and won't change the course of the Eagles defense. So strap yourselves up. If you're new around here, guys, it would be absolutely amazing if you could leave a like and hit that subscribe button. We want to build again the biggest Philadelphia sports community on YouTube, and we would love for you to be a part of it. So let us know your opinions down below. Should the Eagles trade for Ramsey? Let's get straight into it. Let's start off with something interesting. The Eagles don't exactly spend a lot at the defensive back position. We can look at the contracts for Malcolm Jenkins and Rodney McLeod, but over time they've dissipated. And as of right now, both Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills, who this would be their third year starting together had it not been for Jalen Mills recovering from injury, they're both in their contract year. Rasul Douglas and Sidney Jones were in the same draft class. They've got one more contract year after this, and Avonte Maddox has 2 more years after this season is up. Outside of that, there is no long-term solution at corner, and there hasn't been arguably since the days of Asante Samuel. We've seen a tumultuous Chip Kelly era. We saw 2016 with Laerdis McKelvin and Nolan Carroll. There hasn't been any kind of corner to give the Eagles that firm belief that this is the guy they want to build around in the secondary, and maybe, just maybe, Jalen Ramsey can fix that. But the truth is, if we look at Jalen Ramsey's contract, he would only cost the Eagles around $3 million now, which is absolutely fine, but he's in his 4th season, and that means that from next year he can either be picked up as a 5th-year option, franchise tagged, or of course given that new contract. And if the Eagles don't work out a new contract, if they can't find a happy middle ground between a player who wants to be the highest paid corner in the NFL and a team who love backloading contracts, then what we could see is a player play under the 5th-year option for $13 million. And that number's significant because it is literally almost double what the Eagles are paying their current crop of cornerbacks. They do not spend highly at this position, and they would go from one extreme to the other just to facilitate the arrival of Jalen Ramsey. The question is he worth it? We'll get to that question very shortly, but we do have to examine what that new contract may look like, because the Eagles may be swimming in cap space right now, but they are drowning in uncertainty. And even if we just take for the assumption that the Eagles are going to give Jalen Ramsey that 5th-year option and say the number's going to be around $13.7 million, Xavier Howard signed a roughly $15 million a year contract. That's now the benchmark we're looking at for Jalen Ramsey. And the second you hit 2021, so after that 5th-year option has been played, and the Eagles, let's say for the sake of this argument, have not given new deals to guys like Lane Johnson and Zach Ertz, well, this could be a very fun offseason. Zach Ertz and Lane Johnson could easily be among those seeking new deals, and in that year, the Eagles have $55 million tied up in Carson Wentz, Fletcher Cox, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Graham, Lane Johnson, and Zach Ertz. The latter two are earning $8 million each at that point, which is almost half of what the other guys are earning, and they'll absolutely want a rise should their play continue to be at an all-pro level. This would also be the year that Ramsey, presumably annoyed at this point having just played under the 5th-year option, can be franchise tagged. And if we say that that number is around $15 million, can the Eagles really afford to put that much into the secondary? Again, not knowing what the futures of guys like Rodney McLeod, like Malcolm Jenkins are going to be. It's a very tricky landscape to navigate. We know they like backloading deals, but Ramsey wants his money and he wants all of it, so he's gonna seek high guarantees, and I don't think the Eagles are in the best position to pay. I mean, they can facilitate it. They've shown that already. And if you think I'm gonna forget Howie Roseman's genius cap work, then you're wrong. There's a whole video on this channel. There's an article written that go into how Howie Roseman treats these contracts like credit cards, stacking them up on the back end and then paying them off before the interest hits. It's a very sneaky, very aggressive way of doing it. He can make it happen, but is it the smartest decision that the team can make? The next part obviously is what the Eagles would have to give up, and we can take the Minkah Fitzpatrick deal, another player the team were linked with, as a nice base here. The Steelers had to give up a 2020 first round pick, as well as a 5th round pick and a 2021 6th in return for Minka, a 2020 4th and a 2021 7th. Now, Ramsey is a slightly different kettle of fish because he's already proven he doesn't have 4 cheap years left on a rookie deal and he wants a payday right here, right now. So with that in mind, the Eagles will probably have to cough up a bit more. An early report said that they want at least a first round pick, then it became now an offer of a 1st and a 5th by an NFC team, and then it's been 2 first rounders, so we don't really know. But the Jaguars right now do have leverage because Ramsey can't play in 2 games in 1 week. So for instance, tonight if he plays, that gets shut down. That gives teams another bit of momentum to get those offers in. But if he doesn't play tonight, teams are going to try and frantically get to the post just before 6 p.m. to get their best offers in to try and prime away for the upcoming week's games. But we're already nearly a quarter of the way through the season, or at least we will be by the time he can actually play, and you're going to be giving essentially a 3/4 of a year rental for a cornerback. So what do you give up? The Eagles also, their first round picks are going to be more like seconds because they're going to roughly be picking in the 25 to 32 range should this season pan out as intended, whereas the Steelers were guaranteed a top 5. So pretty much the Minka deal, the Dolphins are securing at the very least, if we're being as conservative as possible, a top 10 pick, which is great for them. The Jaguars don't have that. They're in a very difficult position, obviously, with Foles down and Minshew now playing. It could be very well a year of transition. What do they want? Do they want draft picks or do they want someone to replace Ramsey? Because the Eagles do have talent. They could trade away a guy like Rasul Douglas, who does have a couple of contract years left and could easily fly in that Jacksonville scheme. It's about time he was given the reins as a starter. And although he's finally got out of the cage in Philadelphia, he's been chained down there for so long, it would be cool to see him fly and actually get the opportunity he deserves. I think the team have seen too much from Sidney Jones at this point. Avonte Maddox is basically a no-go, and Ronald Darby's only got 1 year left, although I'd be very open to it. But the move would fit the idea that the Eagles are building from the ball out. They've solidified the trenches, they've got a franchise quarterback under wraps, and now it makes sense to address those skill positions as they did with JJ Arcega-Whiteside and guaranteeing Alshon Jeffrey's money. So I can understand it from that point. But now we move on to the main argument, and that is, how does he fit this Eagles scheme? And the answer is perfectly, but it's gonna open up a very interesting debate. At 6'1", 208 pounds, Ramsey thrives wherever he lines up. He can play press, he can play man, he can play zone, he can play off. He's yet to miss a game, has 202 tackles, and he's very friendly with Ronald Darby and Derek Barnett already, so he'd find an immediate home. But my main concern here is that it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes. And if the Eagles do get Jalen Ramsey and he comes in and blows the league up, which is likely, it is Jalen Ramsey, and Schwartz, for instance, presses him on one side while having a safety predominantly over whoever starts at CB2, although I would love it to be Sidney Jones at this point, then is it not a massive concern that since 2016, Schwartz hasn't had or developed the talent to warrant adapting his scheme to? If, on the other hand, he doesn't do that, Ramsey comes in, plays 10 yards deep, and teams realise that the same way to pick away is just to go underneath. And, of course, going underneath is one thing, but we know Jalen Ramsey is a very secure tackler, so the double moves come out, and you're still just going to attack the other side of the field where you have got 10 yards of leverage. And I'm not being funny, you're not going to go near Jalen Ramsey if he's on an island with your number 1 guy. You're going to go to the number 2, who has acres of space to work you and can come back on comebacks, curls, slants, and basically anything within a 10-yard radius. So Jalen Ramsey would absolutely help negate those number 1 threats. The Eagles between now and December will face Devontae Adams, Robbie Anderson, the combo of Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, John Brown, a combination of Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman, and DK Metcalf, all before December. And Jalen Ramsey over Ronald Darby in that situation would absolutely take a lot of that threat away. But would it fix the gaping hole that has just become a byproduct of running this defense? I'm not so sure. It doesn't take a film breakdown to know just how good Jalen Ramsey is. You know how productive he is. I think everyone is who even watches him for just 1 or 2 plays. The other concern is, of course, the character, and although there is a worry of a diva element to his personality, the guy is so driven. He's he's very much like an Odell Beckham, where that passion bleeds over, and when you're being paid that much money and you're that good at what you do, I think you can absolutely make the case for Jalen Ramsey. And in a locker room that is so veteran-led, that is so culture-driven, I think that those spoken outbursts will be toned down. The Eagles won't let it fly. You're going to see, I would say, a very mature Jalen Ramsey, the same way you've seen a mature Deshaun Jackson since his time away. He's lost that young, aggressive kind of personality. He lets his player on the field do the talking. I think the Eagles could absolutely make a run at Jalen Ramsey, depending on the price. I think a first-round pick, a future mid-round pick, and an asset like a Rasul Douglas or a Big V would be enough to get it done. Is it worth it, guys? I need you to let me know down in the comments. Would you trade for Jalen Ramsey? What would you trade? What wouldn't you trade? And why? Is he the answer to this defense's problems? I need you to let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I'll see you next time.